Good morning, YouTube. Hopefully you guys are having a good morning so far. So, picking up next on the checklist of doing the turbo stuff for the Integra. Yeah, let's kind of jump right into it. So, recap, so far we've done the fuel pump. We upgraded to a Walbro 255. And then the last DA video we did the shifter cables in preparation for, because I couldn't drive without them, you know. So, got new shifter cables. So, in this video we're actually going to finally start jumping right into the nitty gritty. Let me show you. Here we are. We got our material to build our manifold. So before any of you guys say anything, I'm doing a stainless log manifold for A, space, B, simplicity, 3, reliability, and 4, the big one is I am not a power guy. I don't care about horsepower numbers. On this setup, I'd love to see 350, which I'm not going to be running much boost, so that's very possible. But the manifold style that I'm building, I'm just copying a direct design for one of my buddies out here. His name is Juan, down at Just Tig Fabrications. So he's a super nice guy. He reached out to me, I think first, and was basically just kind of offering me some insight or whatever. And then he's the guy that I initially bought my chill block for even doing manifold stuff, because he was like, hey, I see you do a few manifolds. And I was like, I've only built a couple logs. He's like, oh, either way, you should get one of these things. I had a batch of them made up from another local guy, Joe down at Low Cash CNC. If you want one, I'll sell one to you cheap. So I bought that, and that's how I kind of got in touch with them. And after deciding to do the boost stuff on the Integra, options are pretty much either normal log style or Sidewinder. The Sidewinder looks cool, but I don't need it. To me, it just takes up extra engine bay space, and that's extra money that I just don't need to spend, because that's overkill for my power goals. And even then, like, I don't ever plan on this motor seeing over 500, because I mean, it's just a stock K20, so it probably won't even get to that point. So I didn't need to overkill it. So the log style that I'm going with is just like his normal one. So it's your basic run-of-the-mill log. So you got your T's and stuff, but instead of having the turbo flange or the turbo itself positioned in the middle of the manifold, so in this case it'd be like right in front of the firewall, I want the turbo to sit right next to the cylinder head. And it's also going to flow better, because instead of having the 2 T's and then all of them just coming like this, like the 4 into the 1, it's all 4 going to come into the same, and then it's going to come out the side, and the turbo is going to sit next to the cylinder head. So it should flow better than a normal turbo manifold. I was trying to make it any amount different than his manifold, which there's only so many ways you can skin a cat. So basically what you're looking at here, this is a 2-inch piece of Schedule 10 316 stainless steel. So 1.5 inch transition to 2 inches. So this is a 1.5 inch piece of 304 stainless steel. When I went to get my material yesterday, they only had the 316 in stock in this size. They were out of the 304, so I just kind of had to bite the bullet. Like, 316 is technically better than 304. I didn't need 316, so it is what it is. It's all getting TIG welded and back purged anyway. So my main issue was I didn't want to directly copy his style, which is 1.5 inch to 3 of these, to then this piece coming up on the end and the turbo flange sitting up there basically. But I didn't have much choice, because here is our turbo flange. We're using the Max Preheating Rods 3076R. So you can see the issue here is that does not very well fit. So yeah, this is like one of those children's games back when you were, a toddler. The circle does not go in the square too well. So yeah, that's obviously problematic. But if you take the 2-inch, you can see we get a much closer fit up. So in this case, just like I've done with my other manifolds where I'm just doing the even bigger, I think I got some 2 3/4 or 3-inch schedule pipe in there. You take it, you heat it up with the torch, and then you squish it down in the vise, and it ovals itself out perfectly to the shape. And then you can take a punch and a hammer, or an air hammer, or just something that you can beat it with, and you just kind of massage it. So that's literally, if you go to any fabricator, any manifold builder, that's how they often do these things, especially if you're building a collector. Unless you're machining one, like nowadays we have the technology, you see a lot of guys using billet collectors, which are beautiful but expensive. So if you're just doing the old-fashioned one and you're making your own collector, chances are you're probably going to be cutting it, and then it's not going to be perfect. So you got to, heat it up and beat the corners out to massage it out a little bit. So that's pretty much exactly what we're doing with here. But I chose the 2-inch because, like I said, it fits the closest. And his manifolds are dyno tested upwards of 600 to 700 horsepower, so I should be fine. My concern was mostly using the 1.5 inch, because I know the K-series engines breathe a lot, and that's why they respond so well to bolt-ons like 3, 3.5, 4-inch intakes, 3-inch exhaust systems. when you're building the manifold, ideally the best way, especially for a tubular manifold, you want to do 1.25 inch runners, because I can't say that for K series, but in any other turbo manifold I've talked to quite a few manifold builders, and they all say 1.25 inch is best. 1.5 inch, you don't need that much flow, especially if you're not going for crazy power. So normally, in normal circumstances, that hinders spool time, because there's a lot of aspects that play into spool time. It could be turbo sizing, it could be the type of turbo you're running, ball bearing or journal bearing. Manifold design plays the biggest part in it. It could be your wastegate priority, it could be your downpipe, your exhaust, you know, many different aspects of it. So the reason that I didn't want to do 2 inch was because I wanted as quick a spool time as possible. I hate it when, especially in like a car with like a Honda with VTEC, I hate having the power band, like the boost hit with the top of the power band, because then you don't get to enjoy either or. It's just like you don't get to really enjoy VTEC and you don't really get to enjoy boost because it just all hits at once. And like it's cool for like a couple pulls, and then you're just like, wow, I'm just lighting the tires up. So in this case, because the K series breathes so much, I might be okay with getting away with the 2 inch. So absolute worst case scenario, we come in and we redo it. So there's only one way to find out. So I'm just gonna get started. Basically, I have that spare engine on the car, but right off the bat, this is gonna take some trimming. These things are huge, so you can see here that they don't line up anywhere near all the holes. Like I'm gonna have to trim a lot. So I'm gonna just start throwing these in the saw. From what I've seen on his pictures, he's basically cutting it right where it starts to curve, right about there. Let me turn that to right about there. So I'm gonna just throw these in the saw and get to cutting. It's gonna take a while because it's thick and it's stainless. Alright, so I just cut this side short first, that way I could start mocking things up, see if I have to trim a little bit more. So in this case, we should be good, because this, I will trim this piece down a little bit, this black line that I have marked here, but ideally it's just going to slip in there a little bit, and then when I trim it back to where I need it, it's going to fit a bit better. And then it's just going to tuck in there, something like that. And then as for this gap down here, I can either cut a piece or I can just kind of fake the funk and fill the gap a little bit. Either or is a viable solution, because, you know, it's such a minimalistic gap, it's not going to make a difference, and it's probably just going to end up cooking away if I end up welding that, so, or if I make a little spacer. So I'll plan that out here in a moment, and we'll keep cutting. So this piece is fully cut now. Moving on to cylinder runner 3. So basically what we can do here is I can just try and line it up, and then I can just make my Sharpie line and draw it around, but it looks like it's basically just going straight to the bend point again where it starts to curve. So I'm gonna just, I'll mark it just for my peace of mind, but I'm sure it's there. So we'll do it like that, and then once that side is cut, then again we'll move to this side, but probably same exact thing on that side, and then we can go to the third T, which I don't know where I put it, somewhere in here. I don't know. Oh, it's in there. But yeah, so steady progress. And then I'm gonna cut this runner last, just so I can make sure that it's all good. But I already got it marked and stuff, but I don't want to set the saw up to be vertical to cut that piece when I gotta cut these other ones. So on this side of the cut, when I was trying to eyeball it, I was off by basically the thickness of the marker, which in terms of filling the gap, that's pretty decent. So what I did then was I just put a center line on the tube and a center line on the center of the flange hole, and then I just measured the distance with my caliper. In this case it was that, and then I just took the caliper, held it on the edge, and just made a scratch mark around, and now you can see it fits mint. So I'm gonna do the same thing right here. So we will just mark a center line, which I believe is right about there. Yes, I'm left-handed, get over it. And then a center line, roughly about there. So in this case now, butt it up like that, and then it should be the same distance as to what I just measured ideally. So actually it's a little tiny bit shorter, but yep. So we should be good there. I can now take this piece, flip it around this way, and just give her a good scratch like that. So for this type, I was gonna just do it in the bandsaw, but I just realized I can just use my my grinder, so I'm gonna just cut this piece with the grinder. So this thing is all cut, so let's test fit it. So very slight thing there, and a much more even gap all the way around, so I think that'll work just fine. And before I cut, I mean, this was like sticking a good 1/8 inch inside of there, so I didn't know if that was going to hinder flow. I didn't want to risk it. So, alright, so now at this point, this is where I want it, and then on the end here is where we're going to be placing the actual turbo itself. So at this point, I can go ahead and I can tack this all together. Obviously I still have to break it apart. I'm gonna go ahead and bevel all this now, because in case this is all good, really the only thing that I have to break apart is gonna be this. So yeah, actually, as a matter of fact, I'm gonna go ahead, I'm gonna bevel all this. I'm still working on the beveling portion of that, because like they say to do a knife edge bevel, which is super hard with how thick this stuff is. So the chamfer, the bevel, whatever that comes on it like this is not thin enough. So that's still super thick, and you're probably not going to get full penetration on that. So you got to sit here and bevel it for a long time. So I'm gonna go ahead and just do that, bevel, and then do all of these joints. This one, not so much. I'll just chamfer just a little bit, just for the flow of the weld to, you know, pool nicely on. But because it's a lap joint kind of like that, or a whatever, forget what it's called, but that'll be fine. But yeah, we'll bevel the piss out of this stuff, and then this isn't too big of an issue because this gets welded inside and out. Alright, so I've never polished, well, I don't know how to polish this pipe, but I think the Scotch-Brite disc on the grinder is probably the closest thing I'm going to get, because either way the manifold's getting ceramic coated to prevent, like, or to help with the heat control and stuff. But either way, it never hurts to Scotch-Brite your stuff before you weld it, and then acetone it, obviously. So yeah, it just gives it a nice shiny finish. It's not the polished finish like you see some of the really nice manifolds, because I don't really know how they do that, but this looks better. With everything all cleaned up now, Scotch-Brited up, I'm going to go ahead and start tacking all of this stuff together. So mildly concerned about the gap there, just because this just still doesn't fit as nice as I'd like it to. But I mean, again, it's a log manifold, so we can kind of cheat our way around it a little bit. But yeah, overall, we're looking pretty good. So let's tack this up and test fit it. I gotta drain the coolant anyway, because I am doing water lines and I am doing an oil cooler setup, so I gotta get rid of the factory oil equalizer thingy on the oil filter, because this is, again, the K20. So coolant system's gonna get open regardless, so I'm gonna just go ahead and pull that line. Honestly, I can probably just trim it and cap it. I'm just gonna look at a few pictures on Google, see what people are doing with this setup. But it looks like I can probably, it's more just hitting the hose itself. So I think if I just cap that part of the hose, it may work better, or just, I don't know, I'll figure something out. So I decided to just go get some new material, and I'm just gonna start over. Same exact design, but the material I got now is just 1.5 inches. And the reason I wanted 1.5 inches originally, and why I went with 1.5 inches now, is because spool time is what I'm concerned about, not horsepower numbers. So like I said before, any normal turbo manifold is usually gonna run 1.25 inch runners. So your spool time is more based off of your collector, your turbo, and downpipe from there. So 1.5 inches for me is going to be just fine. The 2 inch I was worried, although it would flow well because the K-Series breeze is all like I said, so it's just a whole mess. And then I ran out of, I needed another elbow, but then I realized they have 1.5 inch to 2 inch reducers or whatever pieces, so I can just use this. That's all I needed originally to be able to run the 1.5 inch, and I just thought I had to have the 2 inch because the 2 inch was all I could find that I could squeeze to match the flange. So Etch-a-sketch your whole memory away from the rest of this video up until this point, and I'm just going to redo everything I just did just with the 1.5 inch. So I'll see you in the next clip. So I'm chipping away getting these runners built up, so it's looking pretty good so far. Right now I just wanted to show you guys I'm working on doing the flange portion. So this is what I mean. So obviously we got the square, trying to get the circle to go in the square, so we're just cranking it down in the vise just a little bit to try and see if we can get it to match that shape. And you know what, that's looking super close, so I got a little bit more room to play with, so let's just go a hair more. Okay, that should be good. Alright, we are looking pretty golden on that, so the last little bit I can just massage it with the hammer and the chisel. Alright, survey says it's a pretty darn good fit, so let's go ahead and bevel the edges. Call it good. And so the trick to doing that, to making it easier, is preheating. So I just preheated it by welding the edges anyway, so that way it gives me something sturdy so it's not going to break my tack welds. So after doing the edges, the little inch there, outside edge, and then whatever, I was able to just hammer it through. So this is good. Probably gonna have to shorten this, do whatever with it, but I wanted this to be ready so that way I could just be done with it once it's fully welded. Okay, so problem 73, it's not gonna work out too well with this setup because although this would work if I had a smaller turbo, this turbo is just too massive, like in its dimensions, so there's no way to run it without running no hood. And I can't really trim that down because even if I cut that down 1 inch, which gives me clearance still for this stuff, I'm kind of stuck. So really my only options, if I don't want to start deleting stuff, which I don't want to do because deleting stuff is unnecessary for me, I got to run just a normal log style. So I'm gonna have to chop this manifold back up, use the top portion, attach to the flange, and then get rid of this T, use an L instead to run it back into that runner, and then just do the traditional, you know, trim this up. Thankfully I can just notch this or cut this and notch that part to the thing, and yeah, it sucks. I really wanted to do something cool, but I don't have the skill or the money right now to build a Sidewinder. So that's definitely something for the future I'd like to do, but darn it, I was hoping I could get away with something like this. It's just I can't even hold this thing one-handed. It's freaking heavy to try and balance this up. But let me just put you on the tripod and show you. So the issue is I was wanting to run the turbo like this, but I can't because it sits too high. I'd have to drop the turbo way down here, which I can't do because of obvious reasons. That means deleting stuff. So as cool as that would be, I can't even run it like this because there's no room for a downpipe, and then that interferes with the shifter cables. Otherwise that would be an option. But then the other issue with that is the drain line is not down, like it's basically just a straight level slope, which I can't have that either. So that pretty much just leaves me with going over there. I mean, it was worth a shot. I'm just bummed that I've spent the whole day so far trying stuff out just to have to remake it for a third time, but I mean, I guess that's part of the learning curve. So Sidewinder will be for the future most likely, because I want to build one just for my sake, but yeah, I don't have the money right now. This stuff is so expensive. Metal is so expensive right now. I'm already like $400 almost deep, and yeah, like just a material. So yeah, whatever. All right, well, I'll catch up with you guys. I'm gonna break this apart and just start piecing together like a normal log manifold. I'm at the part now where I cut the hole for the wastegate. So the way I'm gonna have to do this, because this is such a small piece here, because I have to have it this short to be able to clear the turbo. So I gotta cut this. I'm gonna use a plasma cutter, first time doing that on this stuff, so I'm kind of excited to use that. But then I didn't weld the flange to the rest of it yet, so I'm gonna cut this, make sure that's all good to go, cleaned up, and then I'm gonna go ahead and weld this to it, or at least get the hard to reach spots, and then I can go ahead and then I can add this back on there. And then for getting in here, that's the only tricky part, but I'll be able to just stick the tungsten out and then I should be fine. Plus, I'm gonna be welding these on the inside as well, so I'm not too worried about it. But just, I need to be able to cut the main section off the flange to be able to weld this all the way around, because I do have to kind of notch this a little bit, or contour it to get it to sit down there good. Alright, so I got the inside pieces here welded up because I couldn't really weld it too well with the flange on, so those are welded up. Hole is cleaned up pretty much as good as I'm going to get it. So I just went to the store and got a couple nuts and bolts because I didn't have any long enough. So in this case, because my flange wasn't pre-threaded, sometimes you can get the nice ones, and I don't have the time to go to a machine shop to have them thread them, and I let DJ borrow my tap and thread set, so I don't have anything here. So I'm just going to weld these nuts on. It'll act all the same, although the threaded flange would be more convenient. It'll be a little bit tricky to get the welds up in here, but I think we'll be okay. So I'm going to just go ahead and weld these nuts on, so that way I just have to worry about the bolts in the future. So the turbo is actually bolted up now. Got the basic log manifold made. So again, I'm not too stoked on it, but I gotta admit, this does look cool. Even though it's not flashing the turbo over here, it still looks pretty sick. So yeah, we're making progress though. So the only other issue I ran into now is because the turbo is a top mount, there's no room for the wastegate up top, so now I gotta mount the wastegate on the bottom. So I still gotta finish welding the manifold itself to the flange, so it's all just tacked up now, but everything else is already welded. So when I unbolt the turbo, I'm gonna just clean up the flange portion a little bit so it flows a little bit better. I really am concerned about how this is gonna flow. Like I said, I just want that quick spool, but you know, I gotta deal with what I gotta deal with because I'm limited on everything right now. So anyway, the wastegate is gonna go on the bottom. We got plenty of room down there, so we should still have plenty of room for the downpipe and all that. So really my only concern at this point is just this fuel line right there. So I can suck that back into the firewall a little bit, so I'll try and tie it back a little, and then I'm going to put some heat tape over it, and then I'm also going to put some heat sleeving over it. This is going to get its own little heat shield, and then the brake stuff here is going to get its own little heat shield. But other than that, I think we got plenty of room for a downpipe to kind of zigzag its way back down in there. So I'm not too worried about the rest of that, but yeah, we're looking pretty good so far. Alright, so it is the next morning, and look at how pretty this wastegate is. This thing looks freaking dope. I guess this is the perks of what you get when you spend real money, and I'm proud of myself for that. But dude, I tweaked my neck muscle so hard yesterday. I don't know what I did. Like, I don't know if I'm just getting old or what. Like, I did nothing strenuous yesterday. I sat at the freaking table welding half the day, and I sat at the saw watching the saw cut half the day. So I don't know how I tweaked my shoulder neck muscle. It's like this whole muscle right along here coming down the back. Like, I can hardly move my neck and stuff right now. So I got like a icy hot patch on it. Just popped a bunch of ibuprofen. So anyway, I'm gonna try and mock up the wastegate. We're gonna bottom mount it. Just Tig Fab Guy, he said that that's ideal. So he said the even better flow is gonna be directly under the turbine housing. So that's what I'm gonna do. I'm gonna try and mock it up where I can put a tube right under the turbo and where I can fit that. So here's kind of what we're looking like. So something right around here-ish. I mean, obviously rotate it, but it looks like I still got a pretty good amount of room for a downpipe. So because I'm doing a 3-inch downpipe to match a 3-inch exhaust, so if I kind of just kick this back slightly towards the block, I think we should be completely fine. Yeah, so I think that'll work. Finished welding the extension onto here, and now that's just going to go just like that onto there. So it's just wide enough that I can just cut the hole and just go to town. I'll probably have to maybe bevel it just a hair, but yeah, so straightforward. Just gonna mark it with a Sharpie, break its plasma again. So I just finished welding the insides of the runners. I'm just letting it cool on my chill block for a while. I'm gonna go make some lunch, and by the time I'm done eating, this should be chilled or cooled enough that we can go in, we can carbide burr bit or clean up the inside of the runners, and then this thing is all done. Minus the badge, I gotta add the badge. Wrapping up this thing right now. I just finished porting out like the things on the manifold, so it's looking nice and good. I'm just assembling it so I can bolt this all up in the car. So for the spring pressure, I'm just going to use, so this is a Tile MVS Gen 5, I believe. So I don't really know how much pressure I need. I know that the log manifold is going to be a little restrictive. So to get more towards my power goals, I think I'm probably going to have to run a little bit closer to 10 to 15 pounds, which is fine. I know the motor can handle it, but I also don't want to be stressing it too much. And again, I'm not going for huge power, so the green and the white spring right here should be about 11 to 12 PSI. And again, I can always run a boost controller, but just for now, to get this on the dyno, see what we're looking like, I just want to run this. If I don't have to run a boost controller, I don't want to, because I don't really, like, again, I don't really care what my power numbers are. I just want at least 300, which is easy to get. I want to do it without straining things. So I'm gonna go ahead and put these springs in really quick, and we'll bolt this up and wrap this whole setup, or wrap this video up. Let's put this thing back together. Alright, so I'm probably gonna have to clamp this down because I got weak little arms right now because my neck's still hurting. So these things are kind of tricky to put together, you know. But whatever, we got it. Hopefully we didn't hurt the diaphragm. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Finally wrapped up for this freaking turbo manifold. So I'm overall pretty stoked on it. Everything fits really well. Like I said, my main concern, or my biggest issue, was just more myself not being able to figure out a good design and having to settle for this. And again, I'll try a tubular manifold a little bit later on, but for now, let's just be happy we got this. So progression is progression. Like, I'm learning, we're learning together type thing. So it looks sick either way. So I'm stoked. So yeah, we got plenty of clearance. Again, the only main concern is this fuel line, which I'm gonna make sure I wrap the piss out of and heat shield all that. So I already reiterated that, so we're good there. But it just looks cool. On that note, guys, I'm ending this video. I'm tired, and I gotta plan out the next move. So the next video, we're definitely gonna be working on this. I just gotta figure out what to do next. So I kind of want to start on the downpipe right away, because I would like to be able to drop the manifold and everything off for Cerakote. But either way, like, I kind of need it all bolted up because I need to build everything else around this setup now. So you guys know how it goes. Anyways, if you enjoyed the video, be sure to let me know in the comments down below. If you stuck around to the end of the video, be sure to comment flapjacks so I know how many of you guys are sticking around to the end, which ones of you are the real MVPs. If you want to help support the channel, I do have a Patreon. Please sign up for that. Go get some merch in the Big Cartel. Support your boy doing his SD Fab stuff, getting some bumper bars and stuff in the Big Cartel as well. Anyway, guys, do what you love, figure out the rest. Thanks for putting up with me here on my channel for the day, and we'll see you in the next one. Peace out.